ahead and look at what you're going to do. You're just going to give us kind of an overview of the EzDent-i software right now. Everything from the screen overview, getting all of our settings correct, the teeth code, email, practice information, sensor save options, patient entry, and then also going into some camera layouts with laying out your custom mounts for camera and for the sensor workflow. Paul, I know I get a lot of questions on layouts and mounts, so this will be a good time for us to really go through if offices have different hygienists and assistants that take different layouts or take different workflows. We can go through and show a lot of this here, so that's going to be a really a good topic for everybody. So do you want to go ahead and switch it over to your screen there, Paul, and then we can go into some software?
Yeah, absolutely. Screen.
All right.
So let's talk about some software here. So I have my EzDent-i icon. I'm going to go ahead and double click on that here, and our software, we can bring that up right here. So I just want to discuss a couple things, starting with kind of like an overview, and then adding patients, and then getting into the settings, talking about acquisition, and then creating custom layouts. So when I open up my software here, we can see I have my list of patients here. Starting on the upper left side of the screen, I can search in the search box. I can type first name, last name. You don't have to type the entire thing. To pull a list of everyone, here's kind of a quick tip. If I click on the plus sign, I can now pull a list, and I can break it down by modality as well. I can pull a list of all my patients. So if I click all dates, that would be all my patients in my system here. Underneath that, we have recently acquired, recently viewed, just as little shortcuts there. I have my patient here set up, Mike here, with my sensor images already set up, ready to go here. But let's just talk about some of the items on top. So up top, pretty simple here, add patient. Click that. We can add our name, our gender, our date of birth, which is typical information that we're adding in there, and of course any additional information that you may want to enter here on the bottom portion of the screen. The chart number, just FYI on that. If you do want to change the chart number, some offices like to keep it the same number as their regular patient chart number, like Dentrix number or something. This is where you would have to change that, because once you create the chart, you can't change the number. Just FYI on that. You could actually add a photo there, so I kind of added one just as a sample there. So I could click open and add a photo to this patient chart here. So that's how I would add a patient. The next button, just modify that information along the way. The next icon to delete. If I want to delete a patient, let's say I added a duplicate patient. In that scenario, I could just delete the wrong one. And the password is 40, so it's 0000 to delete. Or if you have to transfer any image and ask you for a password there, the password is also 4 zeros. So that's kind of consistent there. The next icon after that is it's kind of a clear screen, or I like to call it kind of a HIPAA button. If you have, let's say, a screen up and you just want to clear all the names for HIPAA purposes, that's what that does right there, and then it will clear it out, and then I could, bring my patient back up on the left side under the search box here to bring my patient back up. The next icon after that is exporting information on all of your scans in EzDent-i. Whether they're sensor, CT, it'll give you detailed information on all of the scans in a Excel format report there. This is a similar thing. It exports the patient information, but just for that one patient. The icon next to it, which is grayed out, is just an export button. So if I want to export one of these images, I can highlight one and I can export right from here. So they've added that to the new version of EzDent. Similar to just right-clicking and exporting. It's pretty much the same thing. And now they've added this really neat help menu here. So if I click on this here, we can see that pretty much every tab in the software it has a section for. So you can search here and just read the articles, the help articles related to that. So that is really helpful there. You could also search if you have something specific you want to search for in the help menu here. Just search in the search box there. On the right side, you could organize by date or modality, of course. This down on the bottom, this enlarges. sometimes I forget about this button, but this is really helpful sometimes to enlarge the images to that window. So that's what that does on that. So that's just a little bit about the overview of my screen here. So I just want to talk about a couple relevant items in the settings, kind of out of the box. So to access the settings in EzDent, I'm going to click on Main Menu, and I'm going to go to Settings. When the settings window comes out, now there's a ton of stuff in here, but I want to focus a couple important key things in here. So starting with the environment, which is already set to the environment on the left side, under the General tab here, this is where you can change the teeth code if it's not correct, either FDI, obviously, or universal on that. Database is going to be your server settings. Usually, IT might go into there. Under the Patient tab, this is where the chart numbering is set to automatic. If you wanted to manually enter the chart numbers, you could uncheck that, for example. This is how the patient information is displayed. So that's if you want it, switched around, you could set that there. Under the Linkage tab here is where you set the email. So Jim's going to go over reports later, but if you want to email directly from the program, this is where you can set the settings in the bottom down here. And we usually recommend, because you have to put the server information in there. So we recommend, contacting your IT about that, but that's where you enter that information. So you can direct them to that section down there. And Jim will demonstrate that later. Under the Practice Information tab, next is going to be you can enter your practice information to show up on your reports and your printouts. So just you can fill those fields out on there. And then on the bottom, I already have mine set up with a logo. So if yours is set to text, all you have to do is click on Logo and click Open and add the logo, and it will be in your reports, and it also displays right on the software down in the left-hand column of my screen there. So that's kind of nice there. And then another kind of significant, important setting is under the Acquisition tab. So if I click on Acquisition on the left side of the screen, so by default, out of the box, it is set to manual for the save option for the sensors. So your IT company probably had set this, but sometimes just in case, double check that. And you want to make sure that the sensor options are set to autosave. And similarly, if you're using an intraoral camera as well. So that's an important setting on there. So that's just a couple settings in the settings tabs I wanted to discuss. Jim, anything else you want to mention in here? I know there's a lot of settings in here.
Yeah, I do have, not so much actually in settings, yeah, I do have a question that came in. If you can go back to environments and back to your linkage and email.
Yeah.
I have a question coming in about, getting that SMTP server address. Yes. And I think the answer is, getting your IT department involved to get that all set up, because some office emails, we need to find the password and then get that SMTP server and look for the port and different securities there. And then once we test that should go through and work. So oftentimes we'll get your office IT involved in that and getting that set up on there.
Yeah, because if you're usually dealing with a server and the SMTP is usually different. I think if you have a Gmail, you could Google it and figure it out. But if it's an office server address, usually the IT is the best bet there.
Right. And then there's another question that came in about patient information and adding what patient information is pertinent to add onto that patient tab. Someone said, there's a lot of different information there. What do we specifically need to add on the patient when we're adding patients?
So when we're adding a patient in, I'll put a test one in. I'll just go ahead and do test patient here. So first name, last name, obviously, definitely the gender, definitely the birth date, because we have duplicate patients. You're gonna be in trouble if we don't have the correct birth date in there.
So those are the pertinent items we do need to send in. It looks like there's also other options below if you want to expand on that too.
Yep. Yes, I think some offices that may not have a digital practice management system might use this a little bit more in detail. Like you could break it down by doctor if you have multiple doctors, and then obviously social, phone, mobile, email, all those fields are optional.
Right. So perfect. And then one comment is, if you're linking from another practice management, oftentimes this can be auto-filled to where you'll go to your practice management software and it will automatically launch the EzDent-i, and actually the patient information may already be added in there. So different scenarios there, but yeah,
Right.
Paul, I think those were only comments and questions that I had, or that had come in
Okay,
specifically on what you covered so far.
great. Okay, so the next thing before we get into the other tabs here is I want to talk about making customized layouts, mounts, layouts, kind of the same terms, I feel. But to, because when we go into the acquisition tab here, which Jim's going to get to, there's mounts already set up for you here in the layouts, but you may want custom mounts and layouts when you view it in the viewer tab as well. So to access this and create a new one, we're going to go to main menu and go to FMX layout editor. So I think a common one that we are creating for clients is a bite wing with PAs, namely 4 bite wing and 2 PAs, I would say is the most popular one that we're creating. So we can see here we have under our mounts here, our sensor layouts, we have 10 FMX, 14, 16, 18, 22, and then we have bite wing ones, but we don't have one that's together, bite wing and like PA, for example. You can see also below that there's intraoral camera mounts as well. So from here, I can create new mounts. Now up here, I can create a brand new mount. I feel it's easier to copy one that you already have and edit it. It's just less work on your end there. So I'm gonna go with the 4 bite wing mount, and I'm gonna copy it, and then I'm gonna add 2 PAs in the middle. So highlight here, I'm gonna highlight 4 bite wings. I'm gonna go up to this icon here, which is copy the layout icon button there. And so we're gonna label our new layout 4 bite wing and 2 PA. We click OK. It then displays kind of the new one there. It shows that unlocked one that's letting you know that's one that we've created. So now when we navigate over here to our kind of our grid window, we're just gonna move these boxes around, or these layout spots for the sensors. So we can just grab these and move these. So I'm gonna drag these all to the sides to make way for our 2 PAs in the middle. And also we have this snap to grid option is selected, which makes it easy, and it puts it right next to the other image. Couple other things up here, up to the right. So this is how we add a horizontal layout or a vertical one. So we're gonna do that in a second. And these rotate if we need to flip them around. And these change the size over here. So if I have enough room to make it larger, you can click that and make it larger to kind of fill the screen. So that's just, you have to play around with that a little bit. So I'm gonna add 2 vertical mounts now. I'm gonna click one here, and I'm gonna drag this to my center position here. And I think I might need to make these a little smaller. I'm gonna click a second one here, drag it to the window again, right next to the other one. And we could play around with this to make it even. I think that's pretty good right there. So, and then the other thing is we're gonna have to label the tooth numbers. So if I double click on the first one to the left, that first PA, it's just asking you to choose a tooth number. So I'm just gonna pick 8 and 9 and click OK. And I'm gonna now choose the second one. Now you notice the arrows there. So what that designates is the direction of the wire as it comes out of the patient's mouth. So since this one's gonna be a lower, I'm gonna wanna flip that around. So I'm gonna go to my circle icon, rotate icon right here, do 2 clicks, and now that arrow is facing down, just indicating that the wire is coming from the bottom. So that's gonna be my mandible image there. So I'm gonna double click on that. I'm gonna select 24 and 25, click OK, and that's all I have to do. So I just click Save. And now this is gonna give you some different options when you go into the viewer tab and the layout. So if you want 1 image, 2 images, or 2 by 1, that gives you more options. So I'm gonna choose the 3 options up top and click OK and close. And there, my mount's created. So when we get into the viewer tab, you'll see those mounts there. So that's how you create a custom mount. And we'll get into the defaulting and favoriting when we talk about the viewer section a little later. So that is the FMX layout editor right from the main menu there. So, and also all of this is, there's a lot of videos on our website in the Customer Learning Center about this too. And if I'm gonna pop that up in a second here on our website, vatechamerica.com, service and support here. and scrolling down past our friend here down at the Customer Learning Center. So there's videos here under intraoral imaging for the sensor itself, and then under the software column, EzDent-i, there's tons of videos in here on all of these topics. So everything sensor related, acquiring, changing layouts, custom layouts are here if you need it, which is it's a great resource. Jim, anything you want to add about the editor there?
No, I think, Paul, you covered it all. It's, you know, the nice thing about it is you can create mounts per either team member with different workflows, you know, vertical bite wings with the 1.5s, 18 FMX, you know, really, and also with the cameras, you can, with our camera, which we're not showing today, but you can do that with your camera mounts there. So, but no, that's really all. And I don't think any questions came in specifically on that. But Paul, that reference on our website is a great reference because it goes through setting up a lot of different mounts and talking about those.
Yeah, and if anybody ever needs help with that beyond the Learning Center, they can always contact us at the education team for assistance with that.
Correct. Right. So, Paul, I think I'm going to go ahead and switch this back over to me. And what I'm going to go ahead and get into here is going to be more of the actually the acquisition of taking images. So from where you showed us, you know, entering our patient and then creating our custom mounts, I'm going to go through selecting what mount is best for the individual staff member. Actually going to capture a series of x-rays. I'm going to also demo that 4-bite-wing 2PA series. And then look at doing retakes. We get a lot of questions of, you know, I'm mid-series on my 18 FMX and I need to do a retake. How do I do that? And then also some sensor filtering of getting a higher contrast or a softer image per the doctor's liking. So I'm going to look at some of those things. So let me bring up my EzDent-i right here. And you can see I do have my patient here. And on my screen, you showed that slider bar. So I've got a couple images here where we can slide across. I do have some screenshots from a CBCT I've taken. I do have some reports down at the bottom, which we will talk about later today. And as I scroll through here, we can see some images, different PA images. Here's even a phosphor plate from a series we're going to look at. And then here's my 4-bite wings, and then goes into my FMX. So if I want to make that smaller, kind of clean that up, I can drag this back, and then we have, you know, a smaller image there. So let's do this. I have my patient. We're going to go into our acquisition tab here. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to look at taking images. And so what you can see here is we do have, this is the default. You're going to see our series of images here laid out. I'm going to go into my change layout. And this is the default here. I'm going to go to my IO sensor. So if, let's say, I'm in a hygiene room and I'm going to take my 4-bite-wings and 2PAs, or maybe an 18 FMX, I'm going to go ahead and right-click here and set this as a default. And you can see I get this yellow band. So if I click OK here, this is going to show my series of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If I come over here and click on the default sequence, actually the default from when I created it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I do have a staff member that wants to change the default sequence and take them in a certain series. So what I could do is come here and now I can click on the way I want to take these. So let's go left to right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and I can click on store. And now that is going to be for whichever staff member wants to take it in that order. You always have your older, we'll call it default sequence set right here. So to capture some images, I have plugged in my EzSensor Soft. You see it will display right here. And here's your sensor leveling or sensor filtering, I should say. You can see 1 all the way through 7. Yours is probably deleted, is probably set, defaulted to 3 or 4. So I do have my EzSensor Soft plugged in, and you can see we have this little clip here that clips to the patient's bib. I have my blue indicator light turned on. So let me do this. I'm going to get this here, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my EasyRay Air here, and let's go ahead and turn this on. You can see our digital display is ready. I've already went ahead and turned my password on there, entered the password, And I'm going to go ahead and say that we are over here in acquisition, IO sensor, and I am ready to capture. So if I click on ready, capture image here, and it says exposing X-ray. So really right now it's ready for me to go ahead and shoot my X-ray. Off to my right-hand side, I do have a key that's attached to my sensor with my snap array holder. So I'm going to go ahead and take my first image. Really important with the EZ-Ray Air, you want to make sure you hold it level. Ideally, we're not wanting to angle this up or down. So holding it level, taking it, and I'm going to go ahead and press the trigger, and it has taken the image there. So you'll see that that will auto-populate my tile number 1 right here. On this 3 version of our software, we do have a retake button right here. So if you do need to retake that image, there is your retake button. So it's ready to expose the X-ray. It is ready for tile number 2 for our bite wing. Let's go ahead and capture that. And we have our image taken. Okay, it's going to move on to 3. So I'm going to go ahead and take my image number 3. All right, and then that in turn will just keep auto-populating. Now you do notice how it rotated the image. See the keys on the teeth, rights are facing up, lefts are facing down. So it does auto-rotate. So as long as we're following that series per area we're capturing, you will get that to auto-rotate. So let's go ahead and take number 4 here. And you can see on here, let's see, I have number 4, but it looks like I cone cut. So I do have my cone cut here. So let's utilize our retake function. I'm going to click on retake. And let's go ahead and retake our number 4. And we can see that lays it right over the top of our number 4 sensor here, or image here. So you can see that I have 2 images. I have 2 of 2. So it doesn't delete it, it just overlays it. So now let's go ahead and take number 5. And I do have this actually, let me go ahead and do this. We're going to have this, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate that, and we'll take our image. And now I'm going to go ahead and take number 6, rotating my sensor. And this will complete our series. So I am technically finished with my handheld. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off by my switch here. Let's go ahead and set this off to the side. So that is my acquisition of going through my series here. And you will notice that they all do say saved, and we have our images there. All right, Paul, I think I've captured or went through the whole acquisition of my sensor, plugging my sensor in, clicking ready. And one thing I did not show is when you do hit ready, this light will turn green. So you'll get a green light on there once you do turn that to green. Now, one question I get is, what if I just want to take one image? So let's go here to change layout. And let's say I'm using let's just say a 4-byte wing right here. And if I just want to take one image, I can just right click on that image there, and we can go ahead and take that image there as a one-off. So oftentimes offices will say, I'm on my 18 FMX, and we can uncheck these if we want to. And then we can just highlight the areas that we want to capture. So let's say I want to do 1 and 2. I can right click here, click ready, and just take those images there. Or we do have the option of going back to change layout, going to our default here, going to our teeth code, and just saying, I just need to take, let's say number 19, and then click ready. And now if I go in, I should be able to just come over to 19, and go ahead and turn this back on, and we can go ahead and capture our image there. It'll auto-populate in that number 19 spot. And that's the only one we have to take on there. All right, Paul, do I have any questions coming in or any comments on anything else I need to go through specifically through our acquisition of the sensor?
Question about, let's see, it looks like just retakes in general, if you're in the mount, how to deal with if you're going from slide to slide, you want to maybe skip a slide or go back to if you're in the middle of acquisition. So I'm thinking the double click feature.
So let's say I've taken 1, 2, 3, 4, and I want to go back and take number 2 again.
Right.
Right. So I would come here and I would double right click here, and it's going to go just to that tile, and we're ready to take that image there.
Okay. So just a double right click on any of those layout frames.
Correct. And I do have it ready, and you can see the green light versus the blue.
Great.
And I'm not sure if everybody can see, but this is our EzSensor Soft, where it does have a rubber coating, so it's really a lot softer for the patient. It's slightly rounded, and that's going to give a lot more patient comfort compared to the harder sensors that you have, hard plastic versus the rubber soft coated. We do get a lot of comments of patients who are like, wow, this is very comfortable in the mouth. And that's some of the challenges of using the intraoral hardwired sensors there. All right.
Great.
So after I've taken this, these all get saved, and if I go back to my patient tab here, you can see all my images at the top here, and they're all labeled. If I hover, they're labeled the images that I've taken right here. All right, Paul, I think you're going to go through some viewer stuff. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, let me get over to, let's look here. So I went through my acquisition. And let's talk about our viewer tab. So here's kind of a overlay of our viewer, and I think we might cover this series here later on. What we did is we had a case where the patient had some PAs done of an endo and really didn't show up too much on the images from the last 2 or 3 years, and we took a cone beam, and you can see this really big abscess on that palatal root right there, or on that buccal root right there. So we might look at that later on in our presentation. But Paul, you're going to go through your layouts, changing defaults, clinical tools, image calibration of the individual images, memos, and sending these to reports. And then from there, you're also going to go into your consultation, going through workflow, changing screen layouts, playing your consult videos specific for our offices or for our patients, and adding those to different categories and video favorites there, and how to use that as a workflow for our patients there. And it looks like you are up there presenting right now.
Okay, great. Yeah, so up until now, we talked about the patient tab. Jim talked about the acquisition tab and taking your images. So now we kind of navigate naturally into the viewer tab. So when I click in the viewer tab, now to get there, obviously I can click the viewer tab. If you're on your patient tab, any image I double click is going to automatically take you into there. So let's say I want to take a look at this lower image here, just double click on it. It automatically brings you into the tab. So you're kind of already there if you double click from the patient area. So I set mine up so it's kind of by default. So I think I get this question a lot. Office may get sensors, and they start taking images, but then they don't know how to get them in layouts. So if you look on the left side of the screen, you can see the layout section is blank. So you have to set favorites for them to be there. So by default, it populates the images in the bottom of the screen in this film strip format, which you could obviously click and you could double click and drag it to the window to view your images. But we want to view them in layouts, FMX and Bitewing layouts, obviously. So to set that up, what we're going to do is we're going to click on Change Layout. So I'm going to click Change Layout, and you can see we have a default area, kind of a a la carte layout, and an IO sensor tab, and also an intraoral camera tab, which kind of works similar to what everything we're doing today is kind of similar for the intraoral camera as well. So the intraoral sensor tab here are all my layouts. So I'm going to go down, and I have mine designated with that gold bar as meaning that's a default. So you can select one to be your default, and then to change that, to anything else, you can just do a right click and set as default. I have mine set to 18 FMX, so if I click in that, there's my default. So each patient I go into and I take images, it'll default the viewer tab to that FMX layout. But I may want to also add favorites, so I can switch between, my FMX or my Bitewing mount, my layout, or anything that's in there that you want. So I can click Change Layout again, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of look at my layouts here, and I'm going to find that one that we created earlier, that Bitewing and PA layout, which is right here. And so there's also different variations of it. So that step at the end when I created the mount allowed me to create these additional ones. So that's what all these are. We can see there's one bite wing 2PA with 2 spots so I could drag it up and view it in that section as well, or one or two mounts together. So I'm gonna go ahead and right click on the one I created, the original one, and click add to favorites. So by right clicking, that's how you add a favorite, and that's what the star signifies there. So you can add up to 3 favorites. So I'm gonna make that a favorite. I'm going to make this other one here with my 2 sensor images a favorite here. I'm also going to make my FMX a favorite as well. So I'm going to click OK. Also, a side note, if you want to hide any of these, say you don't use some of these, you want to hide them, you can go into Layout Manager and uncheck the ones you don't want under the IO sensor layout section in here. Just FYI on that. So I'm going to click OK, and now you can see my layouts are saved for me on the side there. So I have my bite wing PA one I created. I have this one now displays 2 images on top, so I can drag these up to the window to compare any 2 images side by side with my mount on the bottom. So that's what that layout does. And then the one below it is, of course, my 18 FMX layout there. So from here, just kind of navigating, basically it's really easy. Just do a double click on any image I want to take a look at. There's a bunch of options up here, and then right click options that we're going to discuss. So most commonly, the windowing section on the left, we have brightness and contrast. I have my sliders there. Also doing a right click on the image actually does the same thing. So brightness, if I do a right click and drag, affects the brightness, and the contrast is up and down, or grab the sliders, same function. Also under that, we have sharpen. We have max sharpen for the most contrast. We have inverse, just changes the blacks and the whites around. And we also have that kind of old style film effect. And then if you go too far here, let's say with the brightness, I can hit reset, and it kind of resets that back to the start. So that's how we change layouts. And even though I have my 3 favorites, I can still go to any other layout here that I may want to. Maybe I want to go to my 4 bite wing. I just switch that there, and that will display there. So you can change your layouts, or have your favorites in place. So just back to the single image for a second. I'll double click on that. So on top, we have our menu bar here. So starting off, kind of just, if I want to manipulate this image a little bit, these are our options. So we have the hand grabber and the zoom tool. So if I use the zoom tool, I'm going to do a left click and drag, and that will zoom in. And basically the hand grabber panning tool is, I can move my image around the screen there. Also handy is this magnifier, which is on by default under the view tab here. If I click that view tab, so that is, if I click that, it just magnifies my image. So you can set the magnification amount there. You can see I have mine to 140, but you can switch that to whatever preferable for you, and just drag that around to view my image. There's also an enhancement button here, which really pops the contrast on that. So that's the magnifier there. This is a grid, if that's at all useful. Grid's the entire screen. And then back to here, we have our measuring tool for measurements. I have a freehand draw if I just want to simply, maybe I'm showing the patient, I want to draw something here, right there on the image, and this kind of resets it back to the original view. Excuse me. So from there, some other options here. I can do the drop down. We have more measurement tools. So we're kind of just highlighting, I think, the most relevant tools that we commonly use here. So annotation is a really nice feature here. So we can see we have like just a straight line, a square, and an ellipse here. So if I wanted to highlight, let's say, an area of concern, I'll click and drag, and we have that on our image there. So that's the ellipse there. The information here, so this little, it looks like a, I think it looks like a panel there, but if I click that button, it's going to display the patient information on the screen. So we can see it right there on that image. So if I print it out and you want that information on there, that's what that button does, turns it on and off there. And then the piece of paper is a handy one. excuse me, if I click on that and I go to my image, if I click anywhere, it automatically right clicks with all these options. So what is this? Well, these are already preset things, commonly used terms that the system has in there for you, which you can change. So if I think, there's carries in there, for example, if I click that, it's going to mark that there, and I can move that around. So, and if you want to make a custom one, I can click the piece of paper one more time, and instead of choosing one from the dropdown, I can go to property, and then I can type whatever message I want in there. I'll just type custom memo here, and then when I click OK, that's my memo on the screen there. So that's how you can point things out on the image and actually draw text on there, and we can manipulate that from there. And to delete any of this, just do a right click and delete here, delete overlay. So from here, we have our help menu again. So I'll go back to the drop down for a second. So the capture drop down here is a good one because I can capture my screenshot. So if I wanted to, I'm looking at this image and I want to take a separate image of this one image here, I can use this one, region capture, which is going to be basically like a Snagit. Whatever I click and drag, it'll capture. So if I wanted to capture just that area where my circle is, I can click and drag. And with overlay is going to be your annotations on it or without. So I'll do it with overlay. Now it keeps an image of it separately. If I go back to the patient tab, so it keeps an image there, a JPEG image that I could then, export or print or whatever I want to do with that image. So it stores it as a separate image from our original. So back to the viewer tab for a second. So that is region capture. You can also do the window, which I'll show that in a second, or capture view frame. But a quick one from here is, maybe I'm highlighting something and I want to quickly pull it to a report. What I can do here is I have this button, and Jim's going to get into this in more detail, but this sends it to a report. So a common one I come across, like if I go back to my viewer tab and go back to my 18FMX, this is really handy. If I want to print this out on the viewer tab, basically whatever you want to print, bring it up on the viewer tab first and click this button, and it's going to automatically populate that into my report tab onto my report for me. So that's probably the quickest way, for example, if I want to print my FMX. Jim's going to go into more detail about that in a bit here. So that's what that button does. And if it's not displaying, it defaults to the view tab. So if you don't see it up there, click the drop down, and remember it's under the capture drop down here, right here, to send a report. Also, some offices like to have a copy of this FMX on the patient tab, because when you look at the patient tab, all you see is the single images. So kind of side note here, I do this sometimes when I show the offices this, is I'll go to capture and I'll click the camera here, the capture view frame, and it will take a separate image of that whole FMX. So now when I go back to the patient tab, it displays there for me there. So that's kind of a side item I usually show offices on my end. So that's the drop down for capture there. Let's see, Jim, anything you want to add about tools on here?
I do have one comment coming in. One office wants to know, is there a way to list the images at the bottom of the view frame to be able to select through them one at a time? And then the next question is, I see the all button up in the upper right hand corner. What is that drop down there, and how do I go back 6 months to look at my set of images there?
Right. Okay. So let me go back to that. So the all button is by date range. So you can pull past dates. Depending on the amount you have, you can pull them on the same screen as well. So that just separates it by date. And then if we do want to be able to have a film strip on the bottom here, I can go to change layout. And for instance, we have an 18FMX with a film strip right here. So I can switch to that one, and you can see that we have our FMX on the bottom and then viewing our images up on top here. So that's how you can switch between that. So it's really personal preference and how you want it to display on the screen for you there. And then finally, as far as the single image goes, I'm going to go back and go to, let's see, I'm going to go to my regular FMX and bring back my single image. So if I do a right click, there's some options here. So if I select image edit, especially if your images come in like backwards or something didn't go right, to fix it, all you do is do a right click and select image edit. And then from here, again, we have our panning tool and our zoom tool. If you need to calibrate your images here, this is how you can calibrate it. I can click on this. You can see the top portion is related to pan and ceph, but on the bottom is where the sensor calibration options are. So it's really easy. I can set it, select your device. So I have an easy sensor here, and then I click OK, and that will calibrate my images for proper measurement there. If you need to change the tooth number, maybe you accidentally put it in the wrong spot when you were acquiring. To change that, all I need to do is click on this icon, this modality icon, and I can switch to the correct tooth number here, or child or adult there. And then if I need to rotate, counterclockwise, clockwise, or flip my images here, that's where you adjust those settings. And then this is the reset button here too. So again, to access this is just a right click. You can also, if you're on the patient tab, you can also actually do this right from here. Just do a right click and image edit, and you can do that right from the main patient tab also. So that is my right click options. You can see there's other options here, copy to clipboard, you can export from here with overlay, file information, or just delete. So there's lots of different options here for my right click. Let's see, okay. So again, the report here, which is really handy, if you don't see it, is under capture, and then click this icon here, and then bam, it goes, whatever you have on that viewer screen, bring that up, and then click that button. It automatically transfers that to this report, which I could then do the drop down and go to export to email, which Jim's going to talk about, and then also exporting this right from here. And then it's going to automatically populate as a PDF, but if you want to change it to JPEG, I know a lot of offices that when they send to insurance, insurance requires a JPEG, not PDF. Kind of a big thing. So you could switch it to JPEG here, and that would be having your report in that JPEG format. And then the one thing about when we were in the annotation, I want to just show again is if I did that piece of paper there and do the left click, it comes up with that list. To change that list, we have to actually go back to the settings. So I'm going to go to main menu settings, and that is under viewer memo preset. So this is where it's pulling that list from. So if you want, if there's things you're commonly typing on the screens, you could just set them up as presets, and that just makes life a little bit easier. So that's where you enter those items there, and that's the last thing I had for the viewer. Jim, anything else you want to add here?
Only thing, Paula, I think we should show is go ahead and go up to the patient's information up there on your annotation and add that. Yeah, so off to the right, add the patient's information, the icon second to the last to the right.
Oh, this one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then go ahead and right click on your image there, and it should allow you to export.
Right here, yep, export.
Yeah, so see where it says with overlay or without, or basically with the patient's information and without the patient's information?
Yep.
So that's going to be a way to, if you want to send it with the information or without, you do have two options there of exporting that. I did want to report, show that.
Yeah, good tip there. Okay. All right. Okay, and then we're going to go next into the consultation tab. So once we're done with our viewer, we do have this consultation tab, which is great. And when we go into there, so it's going to default to my last image I've had. So what this consult tab is just an area. I think of this as like a digital whiteboard, and I can manipulate it any way I want. So it defaults to 2 windows here. So we have our film strip on the bottom of all our images. So what I could do is just click and drag up to the window, right? Put things side by side if I want. I could put 2 images side by side. And then you can also change the layout of the screen. So if I want to change the layout or make it a default, again, consistent through the program, we have change layout. So again, the default designated by that gold strip there, that's your default. Obviously, you can change that by doing a right-click set as defaults. But if I want, let's say I want 3 sections to put 3 different items, I'll click on the 1+2. Now I have 3 sections here, so I can pull multiple things side by side into my viewer boxes. In addition to that, we also have consult videos, which are down here on the right by default here. So that, if I go over to my left side of my screen, you can see I have a recent list. I have my favorites I've set up here. So that's regarding the videos, the consult videos. So we have all the specialties under the category section, which you can kind of go through. So I'll pull up like perio, for example, and we have some scaling videos. So I actually have mine favorited here. So all I have to do here is I'll click my favorites. I'm going to click here and drag these into the window, and it will just go through this animation. There's no sound, but it goes through an animation of, in this case, scaling. So that's how you display the videos. If you want to make it a favorite, because if you're constantly going through the categories and picking videos, it's easier to make it as a favorite. Just give it a right click and add a favorite, and then all you have to do is click your favorites icon or your favorites on the left under the cart section there. And that will play the video for you. Other tools in here, and let me put it back to the default here. I'll drag another image into my window here. So up top, again, just your traditional panning, zoom tools. You could screenshot again. This is a handy tool if you're pointing things out, with the patient. You want to kind of highlight things there. There's a pointer, there's an erase button, there's a grid, which you can turn on and off, and this resets it. And also, again, we have our handy help menu here if you need to search. And then lastly, one thing that you can do in here, which I've set up a few times for offices, but you can create your own custom consultation video. So if you film, I've had a couple doctors that have filmed their own consultation videos with real patients of procedures and things like that. And if you want to import them in here, you can go to edit down here. And I won't go into the whole thing, but you can add your own categories and then import your own videos. So if you film them in an MP4 format, you can actually insert them in there and just play them just like these ones. So that's pretty cool. Also, you can do a full screen here. See, if you just do a double click, it'll take you in and out of full screen for presentation regions, which is nice on that. Also, actually on the viewer tab, you can do that as well. So that's just another feature there. And that is the console tab. Jim, any thoughts you want to mention here?
No, I think you covered a lot. This is a very powerful tool for our, offices to use, and I think with that defaults, or the defaults, if you click on that, it's just going to show the favorites on the lower right, like you said, so you don't have to go through and search for all those. And similar to your layouts, you can also go in and hide the different videos too through that editor. You don't have to show that, but that is another thing that our offices will do. They'll customize that. I don't need anything TMJ, or I want to uncheck these, and then hides all those. They're still in your library. You can always put those back if you need to. So that is one other topic. I think that's all the questions that came out, and you also talked about adding custom videos there.
Yeah.
Through that. But a very powerful tool that is included with your sensor purchase. You get your licenses for your EzDent-i, so you really have a whole library of consult videos that do come with the Vatech software there.
Right.
All right, Paul, I think, so let's maybe come back to my screen over here, and we'll go through looking at some, continuing on our workflow.
Great.
All right, so everybody should be able to see my screen. So Paul, you just went through the viewer. You also went through consultation. Now we're going to get into some reports. I know this is a kind of a hot topic of, this is the handoff from the assistants in hygiene to the front desk, or maybe the doctor or whoever's doing our reports to send. Maybe you're a general dentist and you're sending these off to the oral surgeon, sending these to a ortho office, or even to insurance. We need to get these mounts and custom reports looking good. We want to have clean, accurate images, and really everyone has a different layout that they like. So hot topics we always get: how do I change my reports? How do I make custom reports? And then how do I save those reports in my database, or maybe email those away? So I'm going to touch a little bit on that. So that's going to be right down here. So let me bring back up my EzDent-i software. And as a side note, we just had a question come in, and is, how do I delete images on here? And you see all these different key images that I took. I'm going to click on these, and I'm going to hold down my control, and I'm going to highlight these. I'm just left clicking these in green. Now I'm going to do a right click, and it's going to ask me, do I want to delete those, export, transfer? So let's delete these. The password again is 0000. And that's going to delete these images off of here. So Paul, you left off with the viewer, and you had talked about annotation here, going down to your capture and clicking on our send to report button here. So this send to report is going to take my screen here and send this over to my report button here. So you can see I do have my report set up. So a little bit about reports. I do have my logo at the top here. I have my date and information off to the left, and at the bottom I have the patient's information. Everybody wants this different. You can create this. All I have to do is click here, and I can move this around. I can resize my images here, resize my information. Once you have it sized, it is going to stay on that computer specific to that workstation. So you have to go back and change it. Off to the top, we have our different tiles. New report, adding a page. We want to get rid of the report. We can add images. I'm going to go through these, add a text box. Our print functions are, which printer are we sending this to? So I don't have a printer set up on mine, but I do have, my Snagit software or PDF, print to PDF up there. This next icon here is very important. It shows our print setup. So as far as print setup goes, do we want to use my what paper? So letter size here. Orientation, we can go portrait or landscape. We can choose that format. And one question I do have is, what if I want the information on the image? So sometimes we will say, let's say, display the patient information on the image. If you look over here and I hit OK, it displays KVMA and then the date here. So a lot of offices say, I don't want that on there. I can always hide it right here. Other options for header and footer, I can choose my options to be on the header. I have chosen date, practice logo, name, and information, and footer, I have my patient's information there. So that's the way to manipulate that. If I hit OK, you'll notice that my patient, the image information goes away. And then I also have my icon here, which is my DICOM print. If you are in a hospital setting, that's more so you're going to be using your DICOM print. We're going to pass over that one. That can be found in your user manual, which is right over here. So I think it's really important to talk about really creating a custom mount. That's the one question we get all the time. So I'm going to go over here first. Let's go to change template, and we can look at all the different templates you have. So you should have a stock of templates starting with your image and your your mini FMX all the way to your 22, and then down to some split screens here. Yours is more than likely defaulted here. So you can always right click and set as default, which gives us this gold band. Let's say I want to create a custom one specific for my office. I'm going to click on edit mode, and it says, do you want to change the report? I'm going to say I'm not going to save that, so let's start over here. So I'm going to delete this off of here, right click and delete this here, and let's start afresh. So let's add a tile here, add image box, and I'm going to come here, and I can go through and get this lined up here. I can also add my text box at the bottom. So let's go ahead and change this here and get this lined up here. Once I'm done there, I'm going to click end editing mode, and this time I do want to save. So let's click on save, and that's going to go ahead and save my template there. So if I go now to change template, we can see I have my saved icon here. Click on OK, and there's my box that I have just saved through there. And then to populate this, I can just drag some images here if I want. These are CBCT images. And as I scroll across, we can go through, and Paul, I know you've been working with your interior image here. We can resize this if we need to, move this to the center, right click on this. Also have some tools on here, filter, see how it brings out that PDL area, the crustal bone and everything through there. So let's go ahead and move this back large. And if you needed to add different images, this is the same part where I can just add another tile, type my text box here. We can add this through. Right now I have mine actually defaulted where it is, everything is going to be to the center. You can change your format here. If I right click on this, we can change our format to property, and let's go over to align that to the left. And now my alignment's going to be off to the left right there. And right click back here and go to back to invert there. So a quick way to do to add your images here. I'm going to go back to my viewer. Let's go down here and see what I have. And I have a one window here. I have my image here. Let's go to change layout and let's find that 18FMX. So let's go sensor and go up to my 18FMX here. And Paul, you showed this. We can go to my export here. It's going to add this right over to my image here. Now I have my 18FMX on screen. So this is where I want to go ahead and send this to print this. So if I wanted to print it right off, I just click my printer here and go through my print and my print settings. Always a good way to test to make sure you have your paper set properly on there. Other options here, let's go down to my export, and I do have two icons here. Let's start with this icon here, which is export. This simply pops up a window and says, where do you want to export this to? So it saves it from a PDF, and you can go all the way down through any of your popular save types. So your BPM, JPEG, TIFF images there. I can give it a name, and then I can save that image there. I'm going to put this in my Fast Track Friday images and click on save. Other option is sending to email. I'm going to click on my send email right here. And you'll notice it does attach my individual JPEGs. So the office gets the individual JPEGs of the person on the other end. And you can also get your PDF here. It has your PDF. So if you want to change that full report to a different format, you can. And convert these images to JPEGs, you can always change those to a different format if you would like. I would type in my where this is going to, add a subject. I can come down, add the body of email. And then we click on send, and that is going to send that away. Very important, if you weren't here to join us earlier, getting that set up. Paul, you would cover this, going over settings, linkage in email, and populating your email information. I always get my IT involved to get that for the password for the office, and then ultimately the SMTP server and whichever port and whichever security we're going to be using through there, or your email server does use on that. All right. One or two more things specifically for this, and one was saving reports to the database. So I have this saved report to database. So let's say we're sending this off to maybe, actually, let's go ahead and create a new report. So I'm going to go back to my viewer. I'm going to go to my change layout here. We'll go IO. Actually, let's just go to our default here and hit OK. I have my film strip at the bottom. I could go back to report here, and let's scroll across and let's find our image here. So let's change template. We're going to go to my, let's do our windows here, hit OK. And I want to add these PAs here. So these PAs are on a patient where we had a patient come in and take this image, and we're looking for some issues here on the image itself. They came back for a CBCT at our office, and we took the image here, and we can see actually some abscess through there. So we did add this. I could save this, save report to database, and we'll call this, send this over to oral surgeon, click on save, And now if I come up here to patient tab, I've got 3 different reports here. And if I click on each one, it'll take me right back to my report specifically for that patient there. So if I double click here, it takes it back to this one. If I need to delete these off of here at this bottom toolbar, I can go back to my reports, and we can go open report here, and I can come through and I can right click and delete that one off of there, hit OK, and you can see that one is no longer, so now I only have 2 images on there. All right, quick summary. I think the main thing here is going to be making sure that we properly add our logos and everything that we want to get this set as a proper template. Once that's set, then you can just quickly drag down here from your images and add these up here, and then add your text box. All right, so I think that really covers my reports tab. We went through workflow, setting up reports, exporting data, emailing, and then also saving to the database.